Things have gotten serious in a hurry in the Gulf of Mexico. We now have Tropical Storm Milton, which is forecast to become a major hurricane and impact the west coast of Florida in the coming days. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back at Meteo Mundo. Nice to see you on a Saturday. Hope you're doing well. Let me know what's been happening in your area. Drop into the comments section below where you're viewing from what the weather has been like. We are going to get right into this video. First thing we're going to talk about is what's been happening in the Gulf of Mexico over the past 24 hours, where we now have Tropical Storm Milton. We'll look at what's been happening across their area on this Saturday and then deep dive into the fact that Milton is forecast to become a major hurricane with significant impacts to portions of Florida, maybe even portions of the Northwest Bahamas in the coming days. So let's get started right now. Again, if you're just tuning in, things really got changed in a hurry here. We had a disturbance yesterday, we had a very weak system, and now we already have Tropical Storm Milton. Winds at the 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory for the National Hurricane Center on this Saturday are 40 miles an hour. Okay, but the biggest thing is the rapid intensification that Milton is expected to undergo as we go through the weekend and into early next week. It could become a hurricane as early as Sunday morning, and then the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center is for Milton to become a major hurricane before landfall somewhere along the west coast of Florida, more than likely sometime on Wednesday. Forecast to have winds of 115 miles an hour with gusts to 140. There's a lot to deep dive into with Milton, and we will get into that with some significant impacts. Again, even some tropical storm impacts are likely for the Yucatan, portions of Cuba, and then the direct hurricane impacts for the west coast of Florida, and maybe even the far northwest side of the Bahamas, including places like Freeport, Lucaya there on the Grand Bahama Island, Walker's Key, and then Marsh Harbor and the Abaco Islands as well. So again, on that far southern cone of uncertainty sits the far northwest side of the Bahamas. We're going to get into all of that coming up. I do want to take a second and talk about what's been happening across their area on this Saturday. We've had some heavier rain trying to develop over portions of the Windward Islands today, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, passing showers and storms here, some locally heavy rainfall. All right, there's also been a little bit more of some wind and wave action there as well. There's a yellow alert on the northern coastline of Trinidad, and again, some good downpours that have been able to skirt the Venezuelan coastline on over towards Nueva Esparta. Some of these showers are hugging the coast, might try and drift into Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, where I hear you guys had some pretty good rainfall yesterday in some spots, so that's good to hear. Back over to the rest of the Lesser Antilles, again, continuing to see some heavy rainfall over places like Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Lucia. Again, another flood watch for Barbados at the hour. Just some pockets of very heavy rain. I'll show you the visible satellite imagery here. You see the live lightning data at Meteo Mundo as well. Mainly, these are just some good tropical downpours. They've begun to kind of abate themselves, meaning that they're weakening at the hour. But earlier on this Saturday afternoon, we had some heavier rain. Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe, all in that mix. Then scattered showers up here in the Leeward Islands, but still pockets of heavy rain. Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Eustatius, Saba, the St. Bart's area, St. Martin and Anguilla, all again with pockets of heavy rain localized on this Saturday afternoon. We've had a little bit more widespread activity back over to the Greater Antilles for today. Let me bring back on the enhanced satellite imagery. You can see some of the showers and storms developing over portions of Puerto Rico, mainly in inland and northern sections for today. You can see some of the lightning strikes there trying to drift kind of back over. The cloud coverage at least is trying to push its way back off towards the east. The rain kind of just sitting put at the hour, but places like San Juan and Uti Alto and over towards Fajardo with opportunities for scattered showers. It's been quieter today in the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, but there's been some pockets of rain here and there as well. And again, it's just more isolated in fashion. You can see some of these brighter cloud tops developing, and notice that the low-level winds are pushing the low clouds out of the east to west, and then the mid-level winds are actually pushing the winds and the clouds back off towards the east. So there's a little bit of interaction with the wind field across this area, which is trying to promote some of the scattered showers and storms. Same situation, just a little shear axis right now over Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, prompting a few showers and storms there. Still relatively isolated, but pockets of heavier rain, some towards the Punta Cana area, some towards Lacaille with some good thunderstorms along the peninsula of Haiti. And then we stretch our way off towards the west, relatively quiet through most of Jamaica. I just checked the Kingston area, relatively dry. There's been a few showers and storms there, a little bit more concentrated south central portion of the island, Maypen, Mandeville, Hayes. You kind of shower or storm in Jamaica, let me know there, drifting off towards the south. Again, spotty heavy rain, but that's the case. It's just been pretty spotty for today. Showers and storms continue to flare up over Cuba. It has been a relatively quiet day in the Bahamas at the hour, so not looking bad there. Showers and storms will continue to develop. Now look, this system is way back here, but there is some heavy rain ahead of it that could drift down towards Cuba and the Florida Keys and maybe even sneak back down towards the Yucatan before what is Milton will be coming through. And you can see the storms beginning to flare up. Now, again, this is not directly associated with Milton right now, but we've got some healthy storms, Merida area, Cancun, Cosmo, at least with some cloud coverage at the hour, but pockets of heavier rain and storms just kind of flaring up at the hour towards the Tulum area as well. A little bit drier down towards Belize. Inland areas will get a few storms. And again, overall, with our Central American gyre still in play, but a lot of that moisture up to the north, it's just spottier showers over Central America for the remainder of this Saturday afternoon. Let's get into the forecast, friends. As we do so, thank you so much for liking this video, subscribing to Meteo Mundo. You want these daily forecasts, you want your tropical updates, so you found your home. Appreciate that. In an important video like this, where there's a lot of information to pass along, thank you for sharing this with your family and friends or anyone who think would get something out of it, those who might be directly impacted by Milton's path. And again, appreciate you guys finding ways to support me here at Meteo Mundo. All right, so now we're going to talk about the evolution of Milton here, and we're going to look at all the different models and how this could play out. Again, we went from about a 1 to an 11 in a hurry as far as the intensity and the makeup here. A area of low pressure developing off of an old frontal boundary. Now, Milton will be slow to move in the short term through tomorrow, but still is expected to become a hurricane sometime before we hit Monday. Then it will accelerate to the east-northeast. This front is not going to allow it to go too far to the north, so places in Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana and Texas, everything looks fine for you. This storm should almost have to exit east. That's about the only way that it can go. It might gain some latitude here as it moves into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And again, right now, your central side landfall as a Category 3 hurricane is right over Tampa Bay. This could have catastrophic impacts to the Tampa Bay area if this plays out. And I want to be clear, this is the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. Friends, that dot again is winds of 115 miles an hour. And on the center line and south of this storm is where we're going to have the greatest storm surge. And storm surge could be extremely significant. Now, let me be clear. At this point in time, there are no tropical storm or hurricane watches or warnings. There's no storm surge forecasts to look like we're just beyond that 72-hour window. But by this time tomorrow, expect there to be some tropical storm or hurricane watches and warnings issued. More than likely for Florida, it'll be all hurricane warnings and watches. And then for portions of the northern side of the Yucatan and maybe Cuba and potentially even the northwest Bahamas, some tropical storm watches or warnings. We'll see how that plays out. But this could directly impact the Tampa Bay area and then bring potential hurricane conditions up the I-4 corridor and darn close to the Orlando metro area as we get deeper into Wednesday and then tracking off of the Brevard County coastline on Thursday morning again, based on the official forecast as a hurricane. So there is the potential, especially on the western sides of Metro Orlando, to have hurricane conditions coming through on Wednesday if this really does ramp up to be a Category 3. Let's go over to, actually, let's do this first. Just show you the broad scale track with the timeline here from the National Hurricane Center. Again, this is the 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time advisory. It's just number 2 on Milton. This is how quickly this storm is going to be wrapping up. Again, by your 1 a.m. Monday, it's expected to be a hurricane, but more than likely that'll happen sometime tomorrow evening on Sunday. And then there's the quick rapid intensification by Tuesday afternoon. It's already forecast to be a Category 3 and then stay at Category 3 intensity. Again, officially right now, that landfall would be on Wednesday afternoon near Tampa Bay, and then moving across the state and into the western Atlantic into early Thursday morning, and then continue to push off and accelerate quickly during this time frame. So it will be moving in a hurry. Now we're looking at these tropical models, and this is all not good. I mean, again, You see a lot of them as a hurricane, most of them as a hurricane, and more are pushing higher and higher. Some Cat 2, a few Cat 3, and even a couple trying to nudge into the Category 4 area. And again, we saw it with Helene, the rapid intensification in the Gulf of Mexico. That's bathwater out there, guys. So we cannot discount some of the higher intensity scenarios here of either a stronger Category 3 or potentially even a Category 4. That's how quickly this could intensify over the coming days. So let's get into kind of some of the models for you right now. First thing is first, this is going to kind of be ejected in two different ways. The first that you see in the eastern Gulf of Mexico is just building rain and storms along that front that will eventually push back into the state. It's going to bring some rain to Cuba. It's going to bring some rain to the Bahamas and more rain to Florida. So guess what? There'll be heavy rain in saturated grounds even before Milton moves in. A couple of inches of rain is possible with that. This will start to move in Sunday and into Monday. So we kind of get round one with a very weak, sloppy system, just rain more than anything. But again, you start to saturate the ground already before Milton even begins to move in. So let's take a look at the couple of different models here. We'll start off with the GFS and take a look at all things associated with that. So let me just load all of that up. I was obviously looking at a lot of different things behind the scenes before I came on. Let's bring this out until Wednesday night, and we'll go from here. All right, so this will load up. We'll take a look at the winds. We'll look at the European model. I've got the tropical models loaded up. But again, the bottom line is if you live along the west coast of Florida, especially from the Nature Coast south, even down towards the Keys, you need to start thinking and start preparing for the potential of major hurricane impacts, especially if you live along the coast. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just take off these wind profile fields because it's just going to be a little bit easier to see how the GFS plays out. Now you can clearly see the GFS is certainly following this center line. Now again, today is the 5th, so we are looking at Tuesday, the 8th right now at this point in time. Now again, ahead of it, you can clearly see that rain. For my friends in the Northwest Bahamas, for Monday, it could be fairly wet, and we could have some good heavy downpours for the central and especially the Northwest Bahamas from New Providence north towards Grand Bahama areas. So get ready for some rain, nothing more than that. And then you can see the main system begins to come through. And on the GFS model, that forecast track does take it into the state sometime on Wednesday. And again, it's basically in line with what the Hurricane Center has. Now, it's a little bit weaker as it moves through compared to what the Hurricane Center has. And I know it looks relatively sloppy here, but when I switch over to the wind profile of the GFS and then loop that up, you're going to see that even though that reflectivity looked a little bit kind of elongated and didn't really have a true center, that's not the case on the wind profile field. This is close to a major hurricane on the GFS model. So again, so let's start off with kind of the beginnings of this. And I want to mention my friends in the Yucatan, where we could have some tropical storm conditions moving in late tomorrow or early on Monday. All right. You should not be directly impacted by hurricane conditions. Cuba shouldn't either. This will start to gain latitude again on the official forecast. We look at the cone of uncertainty, and the biggest thing to pass along is do not concern yourselves with this center line. Yes, that might be where the hurricane is coming in the closest track of the eye, but the impacts with this storm are going to be felt significantly and very widespread, especially along the center and farther south, because that's where we're going to have the southwest winds and the highest push of some storm surge as well. So taking a look at the actual winds that are coming in, and again, just to show you, the GFS was sloppy, but if I pause it here and I show you the same model, you start to see that we have some near Cat 3 winds on the GFS. You can see that right at 110 there. And these are sustained winds, okay? So we start to see those hurricane force winds pushing in fairly early on Wednesday, right along, Hillsborough, Pinellas County, Hernando, Manatee County, Sarasota, in those areas, all with direct hurricane impacts based on the GFS model and, of course, that center line from the Hurricane Center. And again, you could have some pretty strong winds inland as well. We'll see if, the track, could we get some potential hurricane gusts on the west side of Orlando? It's possible, but certainly Citrus County as well. And again, that's just on the GFS. But that's just one model to show you that even though that reflectivity looked kind of sloppy, it's a very compact wind field, but some significant winds there. And then it moves back off the coast into early on Thursday. All right. Let's take a look at the ensemble members. Excuse me, this is not the ensemble. This is the deterministic, so I apologize for that. Just didn't rewrite this. This is the one deterministic model from the GFS, all right? So it's the same model I just showed you. Let me be clear, the same model I just showed you, but we're looking at pressure. So you're going to see the exact same track that I just showed you here. I'll take myself off camera in the exact same time frame, but I wanted to show you that GFS has this coming in as a 964 millibar storm. Again, we're talking about a major hurricane more than likely, which again is the official forecast. All right, that's a significant storm, which could be stronger than even the 115 mile an hour winds that the Hurricane Center has. This is the European, and again, this is the deterministic, so I apologize. I shouldn't say ensemble. We're not looking at all the different members. We're looking at the one major model run of the European model. Again, slow to move. This one is closer to the Yucatan. This one could shave near hurricane force winds on the north coast of the Yucatan. Now, let's look at this. The European model is about the same location, basically right into Tampa Bay. That is a little bit weaker, 979. So more than likely the European model would be teetering on major hurricane strength. It's slightly later in time as well. This is very late on Wednesday night and it's just come on shore. So it's 8 to maybe even 10 hours behind the GFS. So we'll see how quickly it moves through, but still the worst weather would be throughout the day Wednesday. And then if the European model's time frame would hold on, we would have more worse weather into early on Thursday as well. These are still frames of a couple of different tropical models I wanted to show you. This is the H-WRF model. This is Wednesday night. It hasn't come on shore yet. So the H-WRF is with the European being a little bit slower. Now, a couple of things to point out. Again, when we talk about storm surge, and we'll look at the wind vectors coming up, anywhere along the center and south here on the west coast of Florida is going to have the onshore winds. You can see these streamlines, the counterclockwise rotation around the hurricane. So the south to southwest winds are going to pull in the most significant storm surge along the center and south. And it has already been spoken about, and I agree with it, that in these areas that the storm surge will more than likely be worse than what we had with Helene. Okay. Now, the worst areas hit by Helene were the Big Bend and the Nature Coast. If this track holds true, those areas would have a northeast wind. It would not have as much of a storm surge as what they saw in Helene. Doesn't mean they won't have coastal flooding. Doesn't mean they won't have problems, but they shouldn't see the double-digit storm surge that Helene brought to those areas. However, it is more than likely in this scenario that areas from Tampa Bay south will have more storm surge than what they even saw in Helene. So residents along the coast really need to be preparing. I mean, right now, you still have Sunday and Monday to really get things battened down, but you need to take all the preps along the coastline for what could be a major hurricane. And oh, by the way, when I take myself off camera, friends, look in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. The H-WRF model has sustained winds of 140 miles an hour, Cat 4. I hope that doesn't come to fruition, but it just shows you. We want to look at a little bit better number. Here's the HAFSA model. Again, these are all tropical models, very high resolution. HAFSA is slightly north, still horrible for Tampa Bay because the southwest winds will take all the water and push it right up. The orientation of Tampa Bay would be bad for Charlotte Harbor as well. Areas, Sarasota, Naples, Fort Myers, all would be bad news. It's weaker though. Winds are 90 miles an hour, so you're pushing, high-end Cat 1, low-end Cat 2. Hope that ends up being the case. Again, we've talked about this with all of the storms that we've had this year. The hurricane models are really good at track, but they're still trying to figure out this rapid intensification of the storms we've had over the last 5 or 6 years, okay? So the tracks have been really good. Let's look at the European rainfall totals. Again, significant rain is possible throughout Florida, central and the southern sides, 6, 9, maybe a foot or more of rain. So you're going to have some coastal surge, you're going to have some beach erosion, and you're going to have some very heavy rainfall through a wide area. For my friends in the Northwest Bahamas, this could be significant rain for you. Several inches, 3, 4, 5, 6+ inches of rain in a couple of spots. You can see that the Freeport area in the European model has rainfall totals of over 4 inches of rain. So significant rain and some isolated flooding is possible there as well. It's every single hazard you could expect out of a strong hurricane moving into these areas, and areas that have already been impacted pretty significantly, obviously, by Helene. If we look at the GFS model, so we're back to the GFS model. These are the rainfall totals here. The GFS is more aggressive. The GFS has a foot of rain in some spots from Citrus County back down towards the Bradenton, Sarasota area. It does kind of bring this interesting path of very heavy rain north. I'm not sure that's going to play out. More than likely, that would be a little bit farther south if it does. But again, just more rain on the GFS, not as much in the Orlando area, but it kind of just splits the storm in a way that I'm not sure is really going to happen. You have to anticipate, if you live in the Orlando metro area, that on this path, you're going to get more rainfall than that. And again, very significant winds as well. Now back into the Bahamas, the GFS, because it's slightly farther north, has solid rain, but not as much as what the European has in general, right? We got this little bullseye over Nassau of 4 inches, but if we average this out, it's a couple in most spots, which is interesting though. It picks up more rain to the east. Again, I'm not really buying it overall. If you live in the central and the northwest Bahamas, you need to keep an eye on this storm, and especially again, Abaco, Grand Bahama, Walker's Key, all right? The areas that are actually within this cone of uncertainty, and I would certainly include Bimini in that as well. All right, so again, for the west coast of Florida, from the Nature Coast all the way down to Venice, far southwest side, you know, even the Keys, really want to start thinking about this storm and prepare for possible major hurricane conditions. Again, that's the official forecast. Destructive winds, a storm surge higher than Helene in the areas that I just mentioned, along the I and south, flooding rains, power outages, problems. Again, you have a couple days to continue to prepare. Certainly take tomorrow, if you're off of work on Sunday, and do those, especially if you live along the coast of Florida that we just talked about, the west coast. For my friends in the northwest Bahamas, keep a close eye on this storm as well. I'll keep you updated. I think the biggest opportunity we would have there would be some tropical storm force winds and the opportunity for some heavier flooding rains as well. One more note on this storm, just to look at the wind vectors here. Let me loop this up real quick because I need to hit home as hard as I can how the storm surge could play out, because this is what I'm very concerned about. I was very concerned about it with Helene, the double-digit storm surge that we had, the destruction there. I mean, obviously we focused a lot on what's going to be what happened in, you know, the Carolinas with all of the flooding and destruction there, but the coastal surge was so significant. Just to again show you that on this GFS model path, right? Let me just get rid of that wind radii real fast. Just on this path, again, note the areas to the south of the eye and along the eye path that have the winds. So the storm motion and the wind fields come together and that wall of water gets pushed into those areas. Still will have some storm surge north, but again, some of the areas hardest hit here shouldn't have as great if that track continues. But we don't look at that center line, and again, we need to be clear, the hurricane center has this darn thing up towards Appalachia Bay and all the way down, as I said, down towards, you know, Marco Island and down towards the Venice area and very close to the Florida Keys. All right, but I'm just going off of the models and then the hurricane center as far as where we could actually see this. All right, friends, that's what's happening with Milton. Obviously, I'm going to keep you updated. Let's get into the rest of the forecast. We still have Hurricane Kirk, major hurricane. Winds right now with Kirk are Category 3. Last update for the Hurricane Center, 120. All right, Kirk again is actually weakening. Remember, it was a Category 4 yesterday. It's a fish storm, thank goodness. Leslie is also a hurricane now as well. Winds are 80 miles an hour. Leslie is forecast to actually stay a Cat 1 and then weaken, and it will nicely turn well away from the Lesser Antilles. So both Kirk and Leslie are fish storms, just like we like them. There is an area of interest of 20% chance with another tropical wave coming off of the west coast of Africa. Now, at this point in time, that wind is not expected to quickly develop, or if it does, again, it's taking a far north latitude. So the good news is, for our friends in the Eastern Caribbean, none of these look to have direct impacts to our area. Let's look at the forecast over the next few days across the rest of the islands. So I'm just going to bring this down. Actually, that's just fine. We'll just loop it up from there all the way through Wednesday. No big deal. All right. So again, we're not going to see a tropical system moving in, but we are still going to have what we call a trough or a shear line moving through the Lesser Antilles, especially down in the Windward Islands. So guess what? Some of the areas that had some more significant rain on this Saturday will continue to have the opportunity for some heavier rain over the next few days. And that's going to be St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. Those areas Out of the Lesser Antilles in general, best opportunity for some heavier showers. Still scattered rain for Martinique North, Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla included in that, St. Kitts and Nevis as well. Spotty rain for Nueva Esparta. Will try and pull in more rain from south to north across the ABC Islands. I expect spotty activity for Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. When it's not raining, it's darn hot. Watch out for the heat advisories. We've had excessive heat warnings and heat advisories up for portions of the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands recently. Localized showers and storms developing over the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Best chance will probably come our way late tomorrow, and then on Monday again, you can see the flare-up of storms there. That would be nice. Now, as I go farther to the north and to the west, we could see some ancillary impacts from Milton, meaning that the south winds that'll be pulled into the storm could promote better opportunities for rain in portions of Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Cuba, and then obviously more potential direct impacts over portions of the Bahamas. So again, could we shave hurricane conditions in the northwest Bahamas? It's possible, more than likely tropical storm, and then some gusts approaching, hurricane strength. But rainfall will spread into the central and maybe even the southeast Bahamas as well. The Acklands could get brushed, but certainly Cat Island and Eleuthera, in Andros and New Providence North. Turks and Caicos just a little too far to the south, scattered showers, but nothing more than that. For my friends in the Yucatan, the next area I want to talk about for, again, potential direct impacts. Now on the GFS, which is slightly north, again, we could get brushed with some tropical storm conditions late tomorrow and into Monday. Some heavier rain, just how this plays out. It is trying to turn north as it gets closer to the Yucatan, as far as just, right on the same line. But as it moves away, we can still have some scattered showers here. And then again, for the rest of Central America, we're going to continue to see spotty showers and storms. It's not going to be as significant as what we've had over the early part of last week, because that Central American gyre is just not as much of a factor at this point in time, but still the monsoonal flow is in and scattered rain will continue to develop there. But obviously, friends, all eyes are going to be on what's going to be happening with Milton. Once again, Milton is a tropical storm right now. Winds are 40 miles an hour, but in short order by Tuesday, it is forecast to become a major Category 3 hurricane, and the official forecast track for the National Hurricane Center has it moving into the west coast of Florida as a major Category 3 hurricane sometime on Wednesday afternoon. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for following us across all of social media. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, where we do some exclusive content, X, Facebook. You want to send me a picture or video, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys taking a brief pause to hit that thumbs up for me right now and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I'll be back tomorrow early with the latest on Milton and the rest of the forecast across our area. Until then, friends, you stay safe, and I'll see you soon right here at Media Mundo.